During 1956, when I was stationed in England, uh, I decided to take a trip through Europe in the spring of '56, and we started out first of all, of course, in France. Now we're looking at the Seine River running through Paris.
So who were you with on the trip?
I was with two Army buddies. We'll see them in a few minutes.
And were you on like a 2-week leave or something?
I think it was about 10 days, 10 or 12 days.
Mm-hmm.
Do I hit this twice?
Double click, yeah.
Do I have to hit this?
No, same one you've been doing.
Okay. This is Paris, of course, and the courtyard. We're looking toward the Bastille, and way in the background, the Arc de Triomphe. Again, this is Paris 10 years after the war. Okay. And that is the same picture. I believe this is the entrance to the Louvre. The Louvre Museum is behind me. Excuse me. Now, I think this was taken from the Palais de Chaillot, Palais de Chaillot. I think we pronounce it that way. But anyway, the Eiffel Tower there. The Bastille. This is the spot where the Bastille, the famous prison, was located. During 1789, it was completely destroyed, and this was built in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and today's July 15th.
And today, while I'm recording this, it is July 15, 2014. Now, you say, how do you say that in French?
Julie?
Well, aujourd'hui, c'est 15 juillet 2014. I think that's good enough.
Try here.
One of my two buddies on this trip was George Addington. Here we are in civilian clothes. My word, I'm even wearing a tie. No, am I wearing a tie there? And I have that coat in my closet still. In the background, of course, Notre Dame.
Where is George Addington from?
He's from Texas. He's from Texas. And when we get to some other films, we'll mention him, I think, again. When you think of Paris, you think of the gendarme. There's a typical French. I wonder if they were all like that. I mean,
Part of the
appearance.
uniform is the mustache.
The mustache, and
Do they have a gun?
I know they had a baton, but that's all I don't know if they had that. Now, I think, well, the skyline of Paris. In Paris, of course, at that time, no building could be more than, I think, 5 or 6 stories. That's why everything is on the same level. And I believe that's Sacré-Cœur, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. Sacré-Cœur.
Have they changed that?
Yes,
Yeah,
because
Paris.
now they have in the in one part of Paris, they have the business section. It's called the Défense. Now that's Paris, and I'm trying to think where I am located.
Looks like you're on top of either a cathedral or probably not the Eiffel Tower.
Not the Eiffel Tower, but you're looking at the neighborhoods. The City of Light, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. At that time, there was only the one for World War I, and today they have plaques in the foreground. Well, we don't see it here, but toward where I'm speaking, they have plaques for the wars in Indochina and Algeria.
Were there any unknown soldiers though?
Well, they didn't bring their bodies back, but they just put the plaque in honor of, from 1945 to 1954 in Indochina. Now, here are the two buddies. I think we're standing at the top of the Arc de Triomphe. That's right. And we're looking at the Eiffel Tower. There is George Addington on the left and Ray Zacharias. He was from Oklahoma. Oklahoma. That's a nice view, probably from the Arc de Triomphe near dusk. That Eiffel Tower was built in 1889, and it's one of the wonders of the world. This is the gate to the Invalides, the I don't want to say it's a fort, but it was a military headquarters. And today you have the museum to the left. It's rectangular in shape, the cobblestones in the interior. They have surrounded by cannons from the Napoleonic Wars. And I see two Sherman tanks. They were the tanks that General Leclerc used when the Armored Division liberated Paris in 1944, with a little bit of help from the Americans. There's a nice view of behind the Invalides is the church. And there you have a lot of military in the interior of the church. Again, it's rectangular in shape at the altar, and on the sides you have, way up on the ceilings, you have the flags of the countries that France had conquered with her victorious armies. And there's one way in the back there, a small one, a small German flag flying. I don't know why they didn't have a big one.
Why are the flags in a church? It's very secular.
Yeah, but and it is. France is a secular country, separation of church and state.
Why would a church tolerate national flags of conquered countries in there?
Well, victorious. I think these flags were taken by the armies on the battlefield, so they're trophies, really.
Sounds inappropriate for a
Well,
church.
yeah. And in the Church of the Invalides is a plaque of the generals who died in the First World War. And one of them is Charles C. Beale, Brigadier General, and he died in September of 1914. So we're just about 2 months away from the 100th anniversary of his death at the Battle of Bourmont. And so that's rather interesting. And while I was there, at the museum, a number of years ago, I saw the souvenirs of the general, his sword, the rank, how do you pronounce it?
Epaulet.
Yeah. And there was something else too. And his sword, I mentioned his sword, his hat that he had. From Paris, we traveled to Sarreguemines, and this is Rue d'Or, Street of Gold. Back in 1900, this was the very wealthy section of town. In 1956, you could see it was quite a few kids there. The place looks old. It's the old part of Sarreguemines. This is in the downtown area, and I can imagine 100 years ago this was a very affluent place. But Sarreguemines was at a very big town. When the war began in 1940, 39-40, these people had to be moved away because it's right on the frontier.
Were the buddies that you were with, did they like going to the museums and seeing historical things, or were they more interested in going to the pubs?
Oh, no, we never went to any pubs. Can you help me? You hit something again? Yeah. No,
So they didn't drink?
No, they were not smokers or nor drinking. This is Paris looking at up. I believe we're looking up the Champs-Élysées, the traffic. For those who like vintage cars, these cars are probably most Renault, in the 1950s. There we go again. The Arc de Triomphe. Very impressive. Place de la Concorde. I believe, Place de la Concorde, I believe that is the National Assembly. The National Assembly.
Those cars would be valuable now.
Oh, and how. Now we're going back again to Sarreguemines. There I am in my field marshal uniform of a corporal. The patch on the right means that I was with the Army occupation in Europe, the European theater, and on the other side, in case you had to remember, on top on the shoulder, the 39th AAA Battalion badge, and on the lapel, on 2 lapels, I have the cross cannons, artillery. My aunt is there, and her husband, Pierre Greff, in his uniform. He has some medals even. He loved to drink wine.
He was a policeman?
No, that was in wartime. That's his uniform.
Wait, so what did he, was he,
I don't know if he. I don't know.
what he did.
what he did. This could have been the uniform up to 1940. I don't know if he was a prisoner. I didn't communicate with him. He didn't speak French, and they spoke patois. Yeah. Let's see. The next one is this one here. This is the Saar River between France and Germany. And on one side is France, and I believe, I'm looking, I don't know which side is France. I would presume on the right side. But at that time, the part of Germany was under French occupation. The Saar was, because when I was there, they were using francs, but it said Saarland on it. That is the church where Fifine and the family went to, I suppose, for 100 years. I can't think of the name of the church, but anyway, it's in Sarreguemines. France and Germany, the houses in the foreground, France, and you're looking across to Germany. So you could imagine during the war, when the war began, people had to move out. There we are, myself and Maria. And that was 10 years after the war, and she had quite an experience during the war, being a resistance fighter. She told me, and we have this in print, that she was able to make, she rescued flyers that were shot down and gave them papers and smuggled them out. And eventually she was apprehended. And the Germans, according to the book that my daughter has in Michigan, the Germans called her the poison blonde. But I don't think she has blonde hair, but I don't know. But anyway, she survived the war, and I have her medals in my house. Oh, there we are, on the roof of the house. There's a cage with pigeons that they have for meals every once in a while. There I am. There are the two military figures of the 1950s.
Looks like
The old and the
Supreme
young.
Command.
Yeah, Supreme Command. And there I am with Maria. Now, her hair does look light here. And I think those are ruins in the background. But there we are. Yep. Had all my insignias on, and I think that's a nice picture. Here we are. George Addington on the right, Ray Zacharias on the left, and I, of course, in my military uniform. Now, I didn't travel all the time in my military uniform. I put it on to show Maria and Pierre Greff my uniform. But it did come in handy because when we went to Germany and we stayed in Munich, we stayed on a military post. They wanted to know if we were, you couldn't just go there as civilians. I said, no, I'm in the military, you know. So they permitted us to stay overnight. The marketplace, looking for Maria's place, we're looking straight down, and there is the small marketplace, and it curves around. And a few times a week, I think 3 times a week, they have market. They were using, I believe it was 350 francs to $1. And 10 years after the war, I mean, people were still recuperating.